Hello, everybody. Welcome to LinkedIn Live. I was just saying it's been a while that I did this, and it's our first session for the year. Every Tuesday, we like to do LinkedIn Live. I say every Tuesday, but in reality, it's really every other Tuesday that we get to do it. Life kind of comes in the way, but we still make it happen. So every Tuesday, we hold LinkedIn Live here. So welcome. Thank you for joining us. And if you're joining us live or if you're watching the rebroadcast, just drop a comment and tell us where you are joining us from. Would love to know where people are listening from. So just drop a comment. I'm joining you from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And my guest today, Mufaro, where are you joining us from?
I'm out in the San Francisco Bay Area in California,
Okay.
other side from you.
Quite the other side. So it's like a 3 hour difference. So thank you for joining us today, Mufaro. So today is really going to be about spotlighting our change leader. And every LinkedIn conversation we do, we call it our change leadership conversations. We discuss all things change leadership. It's leading change in today's disruptive business environment, how leading change and managing change is changing. And we meet and discuss with various change leaders from various fields, various industries, and various organizations. And today I have the pleasure of speaking with Mufaro Nishoto. She's a senior business analyst. And what's great about having Mufaro join us is that it shows that everyone is a change leader. One of our beliefs here in the change leadership is that change leadership is no longer for a select few. Change leadership is everybody. Change leadership is evolving. And if you want to position yourself for the future of work, if you want to position yourself to be successful in your organization, change leadership is a great skill to have. So I'm one of those rebels where we say change leadership is no longer for a select few. You don't have to have the title or not. So Mufaro has been a member of our community now for just over a year, right? Going to about a year.
So,
About a year. So we've had her be part of our change conference. We've had her be part of our change leadership accelerator program and just a member of our community. So thank you so much, Mufaro, for being part of our community. Tell us a little bit about yourself to kick off.
well, I'm a senior business analyst and I work as a consultant, so I have a lot of change in my life and in my jobs. I'm always starting over again, so it's good to be able to handle change and know how to be successful when you're going out and interacting with different people.
Mhm.
And I really joined this community because I wanted to meet other people who were driving change, and they're such a positive bunch. So I really appreciate what you're doing out in there.
Thank you so much, Mufaro, and great to have you be part of the community, and especially you being a business analyst and or business analysis professional. Because I noticed that a lot of folks in the IIBA tend to say business analysis professional.
Yeah.
And we do have quite a few people who are part of our community who are business analysis professional. And what's interesting is that I started my career as a business analyst before going into change management. So it's always fun to connect with business analysts or business analysis professional. So Mufaro, I could go on and explain what I feel and who I feel a
Hold on
change
one
leader
second. What
is.
is going on here?
But in your
Oh,
own
wait,
words,
something strange.
okay,
Okay,
you good?
perfect.
Okay.
Yep, got
Awesome.
it. It's like, what is that doing? Bad window.
Yeah, awesome. Actually, we have Roxana join us from Ontario, Canada. So hi, Roxana. So Mufaro, in your own words, tell us what does it mean to be a change leader? Who is a change leader?
Well, let me jump off of what you were saying about business analyst professionals. Of course, they're everywhere. Business analysts and the business analyst professionals drive change. We're trying to get the most value for organizations. And a lot of people don't see business analysts as change leaders, which I thought was very interesting. But I think anyone is a change leader. If you have any sort of influence, you have a bigger picture, you want to make some big change in your life or a small change, you are a change leader. So you
Mm.
just have to be able to inspire and have something you want to take people towards, something positive that will make, you know, something better in the world.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I like that. Anybody can be a change leader. And I think it's even more important to, really hone in that business analysts are professionals because business analysts have to deal with a lot of change on an ongoing basis. And I like it what you said, anybody can have change to deal with, so or responsible for leading change. And when we think about today's business environment, flat structures, it's no longer about waiting for the leader to lead and drive that change.
No.
They just say, Mufara, get on with it. Yvonne, get on with it. Make it happen, and all of that's waiting for the hierarchy to, I'm going to tell this person and this person's going to make it happen.
No.
We don't have the luxury of it. Flat structures, agile approach to everything, always that need to just make the change happen.
And
So
there's so much change right now, especially with the pandemic and just, everybody had to fluctuate somewhere. It's like, how do you work remotely? How do you interact with people? How do you engage people now? Everything has changed. So everything's all changed.
yeah. And when we talk about change leadership, one of the things that people tend to get mixed up or may get wrong is the difference between change leadership and change management. So, in your opinion, is there a difference? And if there is, what's the difference? And if it's the same, why do you think it's the same?
Actually, I think there is a difference. Usually, when I hear people talk about change management, they're talking about processes, they're talking about organizations, they're talking about tools, maybe training, but they're not talking about people. And
Mm,
change always affects people. So when you get to change leadership, it's how do you engage people? How do you communicate what's in it for them? How
mhm,
do you help them understand what will this do for everyone? Not
mhm.
just we have a plan, here's a checklist, we're going to get there, here's a timeline, we'll get there. That's change management to me. It's like, and it's usually it's one and done. Oh wait, we have a new system, it's done, we've changed.
Mhm,
How do you know that change has taken hold? Without
mhm.
leadership, maybe 3 months later, people start doing the old thing they used to do. They
Yeah.
didn't buy in, it's over. And you're like, we spent, millions on something that didn't get what we wanted out of it.
Yeah.
Outcome did not work. So leadership is about inspiring, having a vision, and bringing people along with you to get to that
Mhm.
point.
Yeah, and that sounds like something that you always need to do as a business analyst because,
Yes.
from what I remember, I'm working with business analysts as well. So, working with business analysts and what I used to do, you're constantly working with stakeholders where you're trying to bring them on board
Mhm.
with the change, you know. But what I also find is that in a lot of organizations now, and it may be to do with staff resource management type of thing, they sometimes easily say to the business analyst or even to the project manager, instead of bringing in a dedicated change manager, they say, manage the change as well. So, do
Mhm.
you get that as well? Whereby, okay, outside of your role day to day, where you have to help lead the change, where you're being asked to also manage the change.
I think people do that, but I don't think they actually understand what the difference is between managing a change and leading a change. It's more like, we need this, go get it. So you just do it. You figure out how to do it somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they understand that there is some sort of a difference between trying to manage it and making sure it happens and bringing people along. So that's sort of it gets very tiring at times, depending on the organization and the culture that's going on. But you
Yes,
just have to do it.
that's very true. In my own experience, even with bringing in change managers, because I've been brought in a few times to have to manage change, and they just say they have just this standard script. Sometimes they don't even
Hmm.
understand the role and responsibility of who a change manager is. So let's read some comments. So from Roxana, she says, "How do you ground yourself with all the change?" So Roxana, please help us there. What you mean by ground yourself with all of the change? I'm thinking like all of the change taking place. How do you, what do you mean ground yourself? Help us there a little bit. Ali says, in addition, an important area to focus on is change agility versus change management or change leadership. all very different components, but people often overlook the agility bit. So, so true. Ali, I agree with you. And Mufaro, I'm sure you'd agree,
Yes.
as in there's a leadership, there's a management, and then now in today's very fast-paced business environment, there's a need to be very agile in terms of how we respond to change, So there's that ability. What's your take on that aspect?
Yeah, I think change is so much around us that we just kind of keep going. We have to understand what it is. We have to respond to it. It's not a one-time thing. You just have to kind of be flexible and open and transparent and just keep going. So that's
Yeah.
very, very true. Agility is probably the new word for
Yeah, responsive. I like that. So thank you. And thank you, Carrie, for joining us. Great to see you, join us. Lovely. So Mufaro, the next question I have for you. As a change leader, because you are a change leader, you're leading and driving change with your stakeholders constantly. What would you say is the most important thing for organizations to focus on? And what is that one thing that perhaps organizations are often overlooking? I'm sure Ali would agree is maybe agility. They overlook agility. For you, what's one thing that organizations need to focus on?
I think they have to focus on people and what's in it for them and
Mhm.
being transparent and communicating openly. I mean, you have to communicate, some things don't need to be known, but I think if more companies were transparent about why they're doing things and who's affected, I think we'd be better off.
What do you mean by some things don't need to be known? So that's a good question because that's what we can fall. It's very tricky. So
It's
what do you
very tricky.
experience is something's not to be known because we say communication is good. What is too much communication and what is too little communication? Especially, I'm sure in your role as a business analyst and leading that change, you come across stakeholders who are often asking you certain questions that you may have the answer to, but you're careful how you say it, or you may not have the answer to. So, what does communication mean to you as a change leader?
I think it's being open and very transparent about what you can share. There are some bottom line numbers people don't need to know. Maybe you have some insight into things that, you just can't share. You just have to be very um, open about what you can share and what your role is, and not to take sides. I think people's sides kind of get confused in that. So it's to, listen to all sides and just try to lead everyone,
You know,
including.
it's interesting you say that. I remember a few times I've been on a project as a change manager, and I'm there working very closely with the stakeholders, but I'm on the technology side of things, so it's the technology team who has brought me in. The project team it usually tends to be on the technology side, right?
Mhm.
And you'd hear the question asked as if, is she on the business or on the technology side?
Yeah.
So you know what you say about not taking sides, because your
Hmm.
role there is to make the change happen. It's
True.
to be unbiased, it's to support everyone as a stakeholder, and the goal is the project. It's not about taking sides. So it's interesting that you say that. And when it comes to I really want to hone in on this because I know you're just sliding over a few things. Is that when you say there's some things that shouldn't be communicated, if the timeline wasn't going in the way it should be, or if you knew that there was something that was happening that would impact the stakeholder, how would you manage that level of communication? Because we've had even a few clubhouse rooms. We've talked about the value of communication. We've spoken about transparency. But where do you draw the line and real balance? I really want you to tell me something that you feel a stakeholder shouldn't know that you wouldn't say to them.
Hmm. Like maybe you have insights into what people are feeling at the lower levels that aren't very positive. It's not going to do anyone any good. You seem to hear, you might be the therapist for everybody. You don't need to know exactly who's saying what exactly. You need to be able to communicate what they're feeling and different things like that. But you don't have to go out and give everyone's names. You don't have to, there are certain things
Yes,
that aren't going
yeah,
to be positive for anyone or drive you to where you need to be.
yeah. So I like that. I like that you use the word, it's about knowing those things that are negative, and we're working with people. How is it going to affect them? And this is where, for me, empathy and emotional intelligence comes in, knowing what to communicate, when to communicate. So as much as we need to be open with communication, when do we communicate it? Who do we communicate it with? And that's a big part of emotional intelligence and empathy, but always putting yourself in the stakeholders' shoe and saying, okay, where are they coming from? What may they be feeling, and how can we support them in leading and driving the change? Roxana just clarified and said, what are some things to do not to be afraid of change? So, Mufara, you work with your stakeholders. Do you ever find there's that fear? They feel that there's so much change happening. They feel a little bit overwhelmed. How do you support your stakeholders in that when something like that happens?
Usually I try to give them a venue where they can speak to me and I'm open and I try to answer their questions and things openly. And usually people can vent and tell you what they're thinking and you don't tell them what you think they should be thinking.
Mm-hmm,
Usually have a kind of an open dialogue. Usually you're better off that way. So I try to
mm-hmm,
understand where they are. How can I help them? What do they need? Instead
mm-hmm.
of saying, we're going to be, next week we'll do this, or you have to have this. Like, what do you need? How are you feeling? How can I help you? So you
Yeah,
try to really listen to them.
yeah. And what I love about what you just said to help answer Roxana's question is having an understanding of what's going on. So, as an individual, if I'm faced with change and I want to be grounded in that change, to the initial question Roxana mentioned, and thank you, Roxana, for clarifying, is that I want to first of all understand what is happening. So once we understand the change that is taking place around us, it's easier to more embrace it. Because why do people resist change? I would usually say one of the things is lack of understanding. You know, a shift from their comfort zone. You don't know what's happening. There's so much change happening around me. So once you can understand what change is happening, why the change is happening, how that change is going to affect you, then you can be more grounded in it. So, as a stakeholder who is on the receiving end of the change, having that ability to go out there and be more proactive in understanding the change, how it affects you, can help you feel a little bit more grounded in the change. And as change leaders who are responsible for leading the change, to Mufaro, is first of all listening to our stakeholders. How do they feel the change is affecting them? I use the word how do they feel the change is affecting them? Because we make a lot of assumptions sometimes as change practitioners or leaders and say, oh, this should be so simple. This should really be quick, or they should know this. But like you said, Mufaro, we need to listen to them. We need to understand what they may be feeling so that we can help support them in a way that meets their needs through the change process. So thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you for the question.
I love that word ground. Yes, that's a great word.
Yeah, there's so much change going on that we really need to be grounded and we need to find ways to anchor ourselves. And, which is a great segue into let's talk about the future of work, the accelerated future of work. Future of work used to be something that we used to talk about, hence the word future of work. Now, the future of work is now. Working with technology, working with AI, working with robotics. The pandemic just, came out right, brought it in our face and said, it is now. So there's no running away from it. It's really changed the landscape. So as we experience this accelerated future of work, what do you consider to be some of the top skills for one to position themselves in today's business landscape?
I think the most important one is to be a continuous learner.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely to get some emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And I think mostly just to be, if you want to be a change leader, to be open, because you have to be able to take things in and take things out. Part of that is also emotional intelligence. And I think it's just continual learning and being really empathetic and just go out there and try to be curious. I think that would help most people.
Mm, yeah, I like that, continuous learning. And that's where, even to what Ali mentioned, being agile and responsive, is very important, where we're continuously looking what's happening around us. What changes do I need to make? How do I need to stay relevant? How do I position myself in the future of work? And what's interesting about the future of work is that there's a shift. It's no longer about the responsibility of the organization or your leader or your boss, especially in today's gig economy, to take care of you and tell you what you should do, and definitely we're old enough, our parents can no longer force us to go to school. So we need to be agile and responsive in the way we educate ourselves and how we position ourselves. And you mentioned emotional intelligence, and even talking about curiosity and continuous learning. You're a past student of the Change Leadership Accelerator program, which
Yeah.
is all about a program which we put together to help people learn about how to lead and respond to change better and faster in today's disruptive business environment. So tell us, what made you decide to enroll in the program?
You know, I saw the conferences going by for a couple of years and I thought, I really want to go, but they were always in Canada. And then it was virtual. I was like, wow, I could attend this. So, I got something out of the pandemic. I went to virtual conferences
Yes.
and I really enjoyed it. I kept thinking what they were talking about really resonated. Some of it was fascinating. So I was like, oh, and and this program was attached and then it was also online. So I figured I wanted to go learn more about change leadership. I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to engage with people who were actually in change leadership, and they had
Mm-hmm.
some really fascinating people. So I was sort of like, okay, I can do this. And I really have enjoyed that and the clubhouse that's come out of that. There
Mm-hmm.
is always so many really great topics, and people are doing such great work, talking about
Mm-hmm.
the future of work, talking about management versus leadership versus the skills that you need. So that's why I joined. I wanted to really get more in depth and become a better leader myself. So
Okay, so it's interesting you say that. So, what are some of the skills, or what are some of the notable things that you've taken out of the program that you are now implementing or using in your day to day as a change leader and business analyst?
I think it's really being more open. I
Mm-hmm.
really, I think we all try it, but to really hear people speaking about being open and how it allows you to really engage with people has been really, really helpful. I've really enjoyed that. If you ever um, get to the clubhouses, those are fascinating. People talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
Empathy. I've always been empathetic and kind of thought maybe it was a partial weakness. And so to hear change leaders talking about that and how they use it has been really valuable to me. It's like, oh, this is a really great skill. Because sometimes you meet people who are more type A, they want to just drag things around. There's a place
Yeah.
for people who are trying to make change and it's thoughtful, conscientious, quiet kind of change. So I've really
Mm-hmm.
enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And then a lot about people are really transparent, and I've really enjoyed that. So I,
Yeah. You talk about empathy, which is a big aspect that we teach in the Change Leadership
right.
Accelerator program. So, and you mentioned you've been empathetic, so that must have resonated with you.
Did.
So, how are you using empathy to lead change?
I think I always did use it, but
Mhm.
I've had people who've said, that's not really the way I make people do things. How are you going to make them do that? So it's more being grounded in who I am and understanding how I use my skill set and how I get people to engage with me. So I
Okay.
think that's really helped me. It's sort of a validation.
Yeah, so it helps you be more comfortable and confident, and
Right.
also from what I'm getting, also be able to use this in a very structured approach that is, that helps you get what it is that you want. Because one of the things that we differentiate when we teach about empathy is that there's compassionate empathy or emotional empathy, and there's also cognitive empathy.
Yes.
And a lot of times you can easily confuse, that emotional and compassionate empathy for how we apply empathy in the workplace, which is all about cognitive empathy. So that regardless of whether you can relate to somebody or not, you can still apply empathy to that situation. And I think that's where there's a lot of confusion, that comes into play when we
It
can
does.
differentiate between the two types of empathy. You know, um, what would you say are some common challenges that, as a change leader or someone who is responsible for leading change in your organization, that you found yourself experiencing?
Uh, I think if I thought about it, it would probably be hierarchies. I've worked in some organizations, especially in healthcare, where there are still hierarchies and people have ways of trying to protect themselves or their staff, and it's hard to get to the right people to, in fact, change. So it's harder sometimes to get the answers that you want, or um, people will try to not they're not quite upfront because they're afraid of what might happen to their level
The
or something. So
yeah, the fear of
protection. Yeah.
because one of the reasons people resist change is loss of power.
Yeah.
They feel that power is going to go away. So how have you learned or found yourself navigating through some of those hierarchies and structures and resistance to change?
I try to just work with everyone and to be very open and very aware of what my end outcome is, desired outcome is, and what they need, and try to tell people, this is what I'm here for. How can I help you? So it's always to sort of be grounded in what is the work? What do you need? What do they need? And try to explain what you're trying to get. I'm not trying to I remember once I did a job where it was the chance of losing positions. And I was
Mm,
upfront with everybody. It was sort of like, we're just evaluating your jobs. Nothing might come out of this. It might be that you are doing more work than you know. And then people were actually pretty upfront. They would be like, okay, they didn't quite, they were open to talking to you. It took them a little bit. They were a little wary, but people were very upfront. So that was really good.
yeah. So that's just an example you've just given, like what you were about what you were saying, communication, the power of
Mhm.
communication, and I love how you bring that together, whereby just speaking with people as humans. Sometimes you want to go in with all of the business speak. We just say, "I'm here to do a job." You want to be very professional, but we're humans first, even though we're in the workplace, and that's one thing the pandemic has really brought to the fore for us is that we're all human. We people first. So just speaking with people, speaking in their own language, and you use something that people may not have picked up on. And I really want people to pick up on that because we really hamper on that, even in the change leadership program, is about being open-minded, being open, and that's what empathy too is about. It's
Mhm.
about being open to different perspectives and different ways of doing things. And anytime I think about even open-mindedness or being open or empathy, you've seen that image where it's like a nine. If you're looking at a nine from the top, and if you're looking at it from the bottom, the way a nine is written, it could look like a nine from the top, but from the bottom, somebody looking at it could look like a six. But if you're so gung ho on this is how it looks like a nine, and you keep on trying to push it, you never end up seeing that other person's perspective that may be seeing it as a six. So being just open-minded is really a great way, you know. And one of the things I find too that you mentioned is when we are navigating through hierarchies, we just think, oh, they're leaders at the top. They should know what's happening. They need to know what to do. And we forget to have empathy for the leaders, the top leaders, and the executives in organizations that we don't know what they may be going through, how they may be feeling, or that fear of loss of power. And when we're able to empathize with them, we're able to get much more done. So, Farah, we've got 2 more minutes. This is like a 30-minute conversation, really jump in, LinkedIn Live, and we talk about things. So tell us one thing that you would say to anybody or share with anybody in terms of what it means to be a change leader in today's future of work and what they need to be doing for themselves.
I think if you want to be a change leader, and everyone should be a change leader, just figure out what it is that you want to change and figure out what your strengths are. Is it that you're good at like I'm an introvert. Are you an extrovert? Do you see the big picture? Do you just what change do you want to bring about? And I think there's so much you could do right now. I mean, between your communities, your work, your schools, your kids' schools, there's so much thing you could do. So I think the best thing you could do is probably go jump in. Find
Yeah.
a book, find some people, just Clubhouse, anything. There's so much you can go and learn about. Just jump in and explore. That's pretty much why I ended up joining the program. Just go and figure out what makes you what you're interested in and what you want to make a difference in.
Thank you so much. And I like that you say that from two perspectives. So there you are in an organization where they bring change and you have to lead the change and make it happen. But you're also talking about going out there and making change happen and being a change leader as well, not just being reactive, but also being proactive with it as well. Thank you so much, Mufaro.
Thank you.
And thank you to everybody who joined us and anybody who may be watching the broadcast, the rebroadcast by all means. We also have another program coming up. It's a free masterclass, which we invite you to join us on the masterclass. I'm going to post the link, which is how to become a change leader in your industry, how to become a successful change leader in your industry. It's happening this Thursday, 12 noon Eastern. So please feel free to join us. I shall be posting the link. And thank you so much, Mufaro. We are 12:30 on the dot. And thank you to everybody who joined us. Thank you, Ali. I see your comment. Thank you. you know, have a great day, everybody. And Mufaro, have a great day as well.
Thank you.
Bye for now.